Let's be very clear from the start. This content is for educational purposes only, as of the year 2026. It is not and should not be considered legal or immigration advice. For any official matters, you must always consult the official Government of Canada sources.
Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to walk through the official rules that govern Canadian visitor visas. Our goal is to clarify the precise evaluation logic that visa officers use so you can understand what is actually being assessed in an application.
All right, let's begin with a very common and very simple assumption. Many people see the visitor visa process as a basic four-step sequence. You apply, you get approved, you travel to Canada, and then you return home. But this view is a dangerous oversimplification. In fact, approaching the application with this mindset is one of the leading reasons for visa refusals. It can create serious long-term issues for an individual's entire immigration record. The process is far more complex than it appears.
And here is the fundamental reason why. It comes down to a difference in focus. You, the applicant, are naturally focused on your desire to enter Canada. The visa officer, however, is trained to focus on something else entirely, the credibility of your promise to exit Canada on time.
This brings us to the single core question that underpins every visitor visa decision. The entire application, all the documents, and all the information you provide are all meant to answer this one question. Will this person leave Canada at the end of their authorized stay? Now, to answer that question, officers use a consistent set of evaluation factors. They will look at the purpose of your visit, the proposed length of your stay, your financial credibility, your past travel history, and, critically, the strength of your ties to your home country. Each factor helps build a complete picture of your intentions. Let's dive into the first of those factors, the purpose of your visit. This is a critical component of the application. An application can fail right here if the purpose is not clear, limited in scope, and, above all, believable. From an officer's perspective, certain types of submissions immediately raise concerns. These include vague or undefined travel plans, requests for very long stays that lack a specific justification, using the word tourism without any kind of supporting itinerary, or stating an intention to visit a distant relative without providing proof of that relationship. You have to understand that any open-ended or poorly defined intention is interpreted as a potential risk of overstaying. Officers expect to see a logical and structured plan. It doesn't need to be luxurious, but it absolutely must be credible. Vagueness is a significant liability.
All right, let's move to the topic of finances. A very common misconception is that showing a large bank balance is sufficient proof of financial capacity. This is incorrect. The officer's assessment of your financial credibility is much more thorough.
So, let's address the question directly. Is a large bank balance, on its own, enough to satisfy the financial requirement? Based on the official evaluation criteria, the answer is unequivocally no. Let's illustrate this with a comparison. Look at applicant A. They have a history of steady income, their funds are logically aligned with the cost of their trip, and the source of those funds is clear. This is what's considered believable money. Now look at applicant B. They have a large, very recent deposit, but no income history to support it and no explanation for where it came from. This is seen as big money, which is actually a high-risk indicator. This brings us to a core principle you must remember. In a visa assessment, believable money always beats big money. The origin, history, and stability of your funds are far more important than the total sum in the account.
We will now turn to the most serious violation within the framework of Canadian immigration law, and that is the issue of misrepresentation.
So what is it exactly? Misrepresentation is legally defined as providing false information, hiding or omitting material facts that could influence an officer's decision, or submitting any documents that are not genuine. The consequence for this is not open to interpretation. It is severe and it is specific. A 5-year ban from applying for any type of Canadian visa. And it is absolutely crucial to understand that an initial approval does not erase a lie. Look at this timeline. An applicant might get a visitor visa in 2026 based on information that included a hidden fact. Years later, in 2028, when they apply for a study permit, that misrepresentation can be discovered. The 5-year ban would then be imposed at that point, lasting until 2033. The obligations do not end once you arrive in Canada. Adhering to the conditions of your visitor status while you are physically inside the country is a requirement, and your compliance is actively monitored. A common belief is that as long as you don't overstay the date stamped in your passport, you are fully compliant.
But the official reality is that Canada's systems track the length, frequency, and patterns of all entries and exits. A pattern of visits that suggests you are trying to live in Canada rather than visit is a serious compliance issue.
Furthermore, there are activities that are strictly prohibited on a visitor visa. This includes working in any capacity, whether you're paid in cash or just helping out in a family business. It also prohibits doing remote or online work for a non-Canadian company while you are physically in Canada. And finally, you cannot engage in any program of study beyond very short incidental courses. So, to summarize the entire framework, it is essential to understand this key idea. A Canadian visitor visa is not a casual permission to travel. It is an approval that is fundamentally based on a calculation of trust.
And the final critical point is that these things have a long memory. Every piece of information you submit and every action you take becomes a permanent part of your immigration record. Any mistakes, omissions, or violations on a simple visitor visa application can and will follow you, potentially affecting future applications for work, study, or even permanent residence.